Hi, everybody. Welcome to
Hey.
Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. Hey, I don't even know where to begin with Lindsay Crouse, such an accomplished actress and beyond. I've been on this journey 5.5 years, and I've done literally almost 500 interviews on 6 continents, and always in the matrix of my thinking. It would be great, with a celebrity, but I'm just not there yet. And then a couple of weeks ago, there was Lindsay in the movie All the President's Men, which I watch every 6 weeks because I'm a journalist. And there she has a prominent role because she's, with Redford and Dustin Hoffman, and then something else came up, and I watched The Verdict. I'm looking for a copy of the movie, which somewhere it's laying here. And I watched The Verdict, which is over here, and then I watched Slapshot, and there's Lindsay Crouse playing all these complicated women. So I then just kind of followed. I followed my instincts, and here we are. And it's such an elevation for me, and it's such a thrill for me. And I've marveled even before I knew you. I marveled at the complicated women you played, role after role after role. And then I discovered that there's a lot of little synchronicities about us, and maybe we'll talk about them. You were in House of Games, and with Joe Mantegna, and of course he directed one of my favorite plays by Ronnie Marmo, who's a friend of mine, and
Yeah.
I'm not a comedian, I'm Lenny Bruce. So the little fragments of connectivity.
Yeah.
I saw The Verdict the night before I had surgery. I shouldn't have seen The Verdict. So all these things, and I reached out. Anyway, here's Lindsay Crouse, and my notes. She's an actress. She debuted in 1972 on Broadway, Much Ado About Nothing. Your first film was All the President's Men. You Academy Award nomination for Places in the Heart with Sally Field. Powerful, powerful movie. You played Margaret. Powerful stuff. TV, a Daytime Emmy Award. You were a pioneer in the role you played on Hill Street Blues.
Mm.
Now you're up in Massachusetts, doing stage, which is something you love. We'll talk about that. And I'm so overwhelmed that you're here, Lindsay. Thank you. You more than made my day or month. You've probably made my half year.
You are very kind.
No, well, serious. I call it as I see it. So, we'll jump into some questions, but if you want to say a couple of things, take it away.
Oh, just a couple of things.
Well, whatever.
Everything.
There's no
Well,
rules.
one thing I certainly could say is that it has been the privilege and honor of my life to be an actor. And I remember I am sitting in Gloucester, Massachusetts, a little town actually called Annisquam, Massachusetts. And there was when I was about 9, 10, no, a little older. I was probably 12, probably 12. And there's a little theater next door to me here, just a place where the community puts on things. And I was in a play. I was probably about I was probably about 12. And I was in this little play, and my father and mother came to see it. And the next morning, my father said to me, "Have you ever thought about doing that?" And I was very surprised. And I was shy and I said, I don't know, I don't know. And he just looked at me with a very kind of sweet expression and said, "It's a dirty business." This was a Broadway playwright of many, many years. And I thought, I wondered, I'm fascinated by that remark, whether he was protecting me, whether he was teasing me, and what he saw. But as I became an actor, I hung on to that moment when he asked me had you ever thought of doing this? Because he might have seen something that I wasn't even aware of yet. Yeah,
So people know your dad was Russell Crouse, and he wrote with Howard Lindsay, and
that's right.
somewhere buried in there is your name.
Yeah, he named me after Howard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
the two men just adored each other.
yeah.
And my father and mother, when they went to bed at night, he would say goodnight to her, and then he'd pick up the phone and call Howard and say goodnight to him.
Wow.
Is that a comment? Yeah.
Wow.
They just adored each other. They were
Does that come out in their, you know what,
special.
Lindsay, does that come out in their work? Because I mean, listen, I'm not going to talk much about The Sound of Music, but they wrote the book
Yeah, they did.
and won a
Mhm.
Tony. And that relationship they have, that's the energy that helps produce the kind of work they did. In my
Yeah.
layman, view of the world. Um,
They were dear friends and hard workers. Um, they worked 9 to 5 up at Howard's house on 94th Street in New York, every day. And I'd see my father at dinner. My relationship with my father having a dinner. I'd
Later
go
on, we'll
finish.
talk more about
Yeah,
some of the other comments about actors and stage and the energies. But that was quite a collaboration, truly.
yeah,
And I'm a fan of the story of The Sound of Music. And it was a powerful story, and I watch it often. We're not going to talk about the movie,
okay.
so be it. Anyway, okay. So you grew up surrounded by writers, playwrights, and theater. Uh, did you know from childhood that you wanted to pursue that storytelling? And that's what this is. Your world is
Mm.
storytelling would be part of your life. Did you ever know that? When did it appear to you?
Well, one thing I can say, my parents bought a brownstone in New York. It was wartime. I once asked them, I said, we lived on the east side, East 61st Street, and the whole artistic community seemed to be on the west side. And I asked my mother later on, why the east side? Why this brownstone? She said, at that time, it was after the war. She said, you couldn't find anything in New York. You couldn't find it. So not only did we live in this brownstone, which was the only thing she could find, but we furnished the house, she furnished the house out of my father's shows. So when the shows were closing, if it was a carpet or a chair or a whatever bureau, all the carpets in the house had spike marks on them. Those are the marks that the stage manager paints on a carpet so that he knows where to put the chair every night in the same place for the actors. So, I mean, when I think back on it now, how the theater permeated my home. And there were wonderful parties that they had. There was evidently a legendary night before I was born, where Eugene O'Neill said, I know the lyrics to every vaudeville song. And Irving Berlin, who was at the same party, said, well, I know the music to every vaudeville song. And they sat down at the piano in the living room and they played like until dawn.
Wow.
I mean, and parties like that, they weren't like Hollywood parties, not at all. These were people who were intellectuals. There'd be the head of Random House, and they loved being with each other. They would dress nicely, they'd have a delicious dinner, but they loved being with each other, talking with each other, banding about ideas, being creative together. It was an amazing atmosphere to grow up in. Yeah.
So wow, and she also grew up in that same atmosphere. you always you said there's always a typewriter going.
Yeah, there was.
And what did that kind of environment begin to teach you? Uh,
That's such a good question because the thing it taught me most was how much work goes into something good. That there was a first try, that there was a second try, then there was, a tryout, and then there was more work, and then another city, and there was tryout, another city, whether it was Boston or, Chicago or Washington or whatever. And I learned that this was serious business and hard work. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We'll talk more about the whole play stage and stuff as opposed to Hollywood. You said I read and I've been studying you for days, so
Oh
that
my God. I
well,
hope
I
you're
have
okay.
been. So
Have you recovered
uh,
sufficiently?
yeah. So and it's all here, and it's a new world for me because I interview actors, directors, and playwrights, and not playwrights, but screenwriters, and so this is such a it's such a thing of fresh air for me. This whole thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm so excited about that. Um, so as a young, first, did you ever like rebel against theater, or was the institution of theater always a part of your life?
It was. It really was. Um, and I guess even more deep than that was the process of creativity. Um, I remember stories like my father's first play with Howard was Anything Goes. And there was evidently an afternoon when Cole Porter came running down the aisle and Ethel Merman was just finishing up and everybody was going to go home. And he said, will you just play this? And Ethel, will you try it? And she's like, oh, I'm tired. He said, would you just try it? He said, okay, I'll try it. It was, I get a kick out of you. So these kinds of stories, like my hair stands up saying that, these kinds of stories created an atmosphere in the home. My father was a very humble man, so it wasn't like growing up with some huge star, with a lot of ego. He was a very humble man, um, very devoted to his craft, worked really hard with Howard to produce these amazing plays. But the definitely the how do I describe it? Just the ground of creativity was something that I grew up with. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Um, you began your career as a dancer before you became an actress. How did that the dancing shape your acting?
Well, I think one of the things that I try to teach actors when I teach is how physical acting needs to be. That the words are one thing, but that you got to play from your feet up. You've got to really invest your body in what you're doing. Very often, when you're not speaking, that can be some of the most powerful moments that you have. So I was 16, and up here in Gloucester, Massachusetts, there was a woman who had been a Jerome Robbins dancer, who was an extraordinary woman. And she and her husband had created a kind of farm very near where I live. And she taught dance classes, and I began to dance with her. Then, when I was in New York and also in college, I kept up dancing. Um, it was very funny when I was trying to prepare for college boards. It was the first year where you had to go and take the exams and everything. My year, I kind of rebelled against preparing for them by going to dance classes in New York. I just wanted to get out of school and go dance. So that was my entry. But soon I began to realize, well, if I'm going to be a professional dancer, I have to join a company. That means I'm going to do one person's work primarily and one kind of dancing. And I can't travel, I can't do a lot of reading. This is very physical and very comprehensive, you know, all day long and into the evening. And I thought, no, I want more than this. So I went to study with Uta Hagen. She let me into her class,
Wow.
and that was life-changing. And when I was doing the verdict, I also went to study with Sandy Meisner because I wanted to study with those two great teachers.
Wow.
Uta taught me real technique, real technique. She was tough, but she was also very encouraging. And Sandy taught me how to see, how to be really present on stage. And I'll never forget doing a scene for him. And I was with a man who was in the scene being arrogant, and he had his feet up on the table. He was my boss. And at one point, as I'm arguing with him, he takes his feet off the table and he sits up. And I keep going. I'm arguing with him. And Sandy said, turn on the lights, stop, Lindsay, stop. He said, I want you to remember this. He said, when your partner sat up and put his feet on the ground, everything changed. And you were the only person in the room that didn't see it. He said, you cannot be acting for yourself. You can't be alone on the stage with a partner right next to you. That is where everything is coming from. And you have to have the openness and the generosity of heart to keep your focus there, because that's how you're going to create the momentum in the scene, not according to what you have as an idea of how the scene should go, but what's actually really happening. And that could be jarring, it could be upsetting, it could be different, whatever, but that's what brings you to life. I never forgot it. I never forgot it.
Powerful. Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
took that class while I was shooting the verdict. I took that class then because I wanted to, before Sandy died, he had cancer, I wanted to be in his class. Yeah.
So some of that, yeah, I watched the verdict 2 days ago, and you know, your testimony, you could just
Mm.
see the pain in your face. I mean, I'm watching it and I'm glued. So so what we're seeing there is a byproduct of some of the things that Uda and Sandy Meisner taught you, and that's
Yeah,
coming.
and the other person that really impacted movies like The Verdict was another great teacher of mine. I was so blessed with those three teachers. Was a woman named Elizabeth Dixon, and she had been a voice coach for Broadway actors. She was Mary Martin's voice coach when Mary would go hoarse after the matinee. She'd call in Liz, and Liz would get her on stage for the evening performance. She not only knew about the theater, she knew how to train your voice, and she knew because part of her work was either removing accents from people who wanted to integrate into America or putting accents on people who were doing all kinds of film and drama. She was Katharine Hepburn's teacher. She was phenomenal. And without Liz and Uda and Sandy, I would have been full of desire, but not necessarily able to communicate. I was so fortunate.
So that comes out. It came out on that scene when,
Yeah.
yeah, it
I
did.
was I was pregnant when I did that, and I was really I was emotional, as many pregnant women are. And I remember I had been really good eating what I was supposed to eat for the baby and everything. And the night before I was to do the verdict, I was in Little Italy, and I just went, oh, heck with it. I'm tired. I'm nervous. I'm going to go have a cappuccino. And suddenly, like, my whole body felt like it was going to explode. And I called my mother in tears and said, I don't know what I've done. I'm like insane. I won't be able to pull myself together. And I ran up to her apartment and she took me in her arms and she said, now we're just going to calm down. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be just fine. And I was nervous when I walked into getting ready to do my scene. And Sydney, who's a great director, he hired, I don't know, a couple hundred actors to be in the courtroom the whole time we were filming The Bench. Now, there didn't need to be anyone in the courtroom while we were filming The Bench because the camera was on us. But he understood what it would mean to the actors to have this group invested in this case throughout the entire time we were filming it. And when I got ready to do the scene, I turned to Sydney. I said, Sydney, I'm scared. I'm scared. Oh, and he said, Caitlin, he always called us by our character names. Caitlin, he said, just open your mouth and talk. He was just, he was an angel.
It's an art form, as I'm.
It is.
It's an art form to direct.
Yes, it is.
It's really an art form that goes largely. It's not unnoticed, but unappreciated. What what
Yeah,
what goes in to bringing
yeah.
out. Yeah, did you do a bunch of takes on that scene?
Um, well, we had three different positions on it. And when we got to the last position and I played the scene, and Sydney said, okay, let's move in further. And then he just stood a moment quietly and he said, hold on. He said, no. And he turned to the cameraman. He said, what that woman did, we're going to move on.
Boom.
That was the greatest acknowledgement I ever got.
Wow.
He created such an atmosphere of a kind of sacred atmosphere. He knew that um, filmmaking, theater, was a sacred art,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he treated it that way. And he loved his actors. In working with James Mason, he'd say, James dear, would you just move a little to your left? I mean, he was so dumb. James dear.
He said like that. He talked. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that
yeah.
is funny. Um, I didn't like James Mason character. Big time lawyer, twisting around there, and
Well, it was interesting in rehearsal. James was playing the scene very tough, especially on the black witness that had come to be he was a doctor and he was a
Thompson.
special witness,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
And I remember in rehearsal, Sidney stopping him and he said, James dear, and he put his hand on his back. He said, I don't think so. He said, I want you instead to thank this man from the bottom of your heart for taking time out of his practice, for coming here today to help you get to the truth of this case. And suddenly to me, James became the embodiment of evil. He was deferential. He was polite. He gave the guy space. The actor began to squirm. I mean, the change was just incredible, and it was so much more powerful.
Wow,
Yeah. Sidney knew what he was doing.
you sure did. Wow, interesting, interesting.
Yeah.
Um, what separates? It's a good segue. What separates a good actor from a great actor? Is there something that's quantifiable? Uh,
It's, I've thought about it because I teach. Um, there are great actors that have huge egos. There are great actors that are extremely humble. Um, I do think that the main element is to be able to really engage with another human being, really be able to be open enough, generous enough to be able to be available for the real give and take. And on any given night to make the adjustment so you're not just there declaiming, that if the other actor is soft in a moment when it's been more powerful, well, you're soft. You join in wherever it's happening. Otherwise, you're kind of a bombast. You're kind of an ego that is just in your own little performance. So the greatest actors that I've seen have been really open and really engaged with their fellow actors. Yeah. Also, I mean, there are great directors that help you to a performance that you didn't think you would give. I've had directors that had to really browbeat me into playing a scene a certain way because I'm a feeling person and I felt it was a little too hard or whatever. They'd say, no, Lindsay, you can't afford to play it that way. And I remember with one person, I finally went, you know what, Lindsay, put yourself in their hands. Just do it. Just don't be a jerk. Just do it. And it paid off tremendously. A director's there for a purpose. You need it's like a rope for a mountain climber. You think that, oh, I've got crampons, I can make it up this. You need the rope. You need the safety net. You need the perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Uh, as I, by the way, I already got 2 pages of notes. I
Yeah.
mean, see me writing here. Well, I need to, that's just how I work.
Oh,
I know
of course.
Johnny Carson never took notes, but I take notes because it's important to have this. Um, well, of course, your first film, All the President's Men, in that environment, with Redford and Dustin Hoffman and Jason Robards. Did you all realize that you're gonna? And I think that film is part of cinematic history.
It is. It definitely is. I was in a play at the Kennedy Center, and I was in a little tiny apartment across the street. And I remember I was feeling rather sorry for myself because I'd been on the road with a lot of things. And the play was Present Laughter, a wonderful cast. Douglas Fairbanks Jr. was in it. A lot of wonderful actors. Jane Alexander was in it. Um, and my brother at that time, it was a very political time. He had written a book called Boys on the Bus, which had become a very well-known book about the 1972 political campaign. And the casting director for that play was a wonderful, wonderful woman. Um, Halliburton was her last name. I'm trying to think of her first name.
Is it Jane
Uh,
Halliburton? I'm trying to remember.
Halliburton.
Okay.
Halliburton. Um, and one day after the matinee, I went out in front of the theater in Washington, and I'm looking down the steps, and I see Robert Redford and Isabel Halliburton and a group of people, and they're filming All the President's Men. So I walked over to Isabel. I thought, what the heck? And I said, I'm in this play, and there are a lot of wonderful actors in this play, and I'd love to invite you. And if there's anything that I could do in this film, I don't care what it is, I would love to do it. I'm nobody, but I'm here doing this play. Why don't you come? So she came. Um, I had an audition with Robert Redford. And I thought, oh, this is really cool. Now I'm doing this on my own, and this is great. And Isabel's coming to the play. And I looked down at a book on Redford's table in front of him, and it's my brother's book, his
Wow.
political book.
Wow.
How can I not get it out from my...
Wow.
So I did the audition and I got cast in the movie. And as I was on the plane, I went to the Washington Post to see the Washington Post and how it was working. And then I got on the plane right after the play to go to Hollywood to do the film. And they put me in first class, first time I'd ever been in first class. And there was only one other person in first class, and they were kind of far away. And I was so sad because I really wanted to tell someone that I was going to go and make a movie. And I was driven in a car to the area that Warner Brothers was. And I remember it was very hot. It was summer, very, very hot. And as I'm walking to my little apartment where I was going to stay, I couldn't get over the fact there was no one on the street. There were very few cars even. There was no one on the street at all. I thought there'd been a bomb scare. It was just a valley. It was just a normal day in the valley and nobody goes out of their house. It was kind of my first taste of California. I was a New Yorker.
That's a, by the way, that's an amazing how you just walked over and that just led to you getting a
Yeah,
part. I mean, wow, that's
yeah.
that's like some of the Hollywood lore, somebody was a soda jerk at Schwab's, that drugstore out there. I forgot who it was, and boom, became a famous store. And the same type thing, you just walked over. Wow, wow. Uh,
Well,
I'm a groupie. I am who I am. I said that a few times. What was it like working with Paul Newman?
wonderful. Paul was wonderful. Um, I can give you an example. Paul was a lot of fun. Um, we did a scene one evening where I started to cry, and we had to cut because of the rules. We had to cut. And the next morning, we went to finish the scene. It was cold. We had to get it as the sun was rising because it was going to match the light. So we couldn't take a lot of time. And the night before, I had started to cry in the scene. And I took a deep breath and I said to Paul, I hope I can cry. And he said, Lindsay. He rolled down his window. He called over the makeup artist. He said, bring me a menthol tube. So it was a little tube with menthol crystals in it. He said, right before we go, I'm going to just blow into this tube across your eyes. It will start you tearing up. You don't need to cry. It will just start you tearing up and it will match the shot that we did last night. He said, always make it easy on yourself. He said, you're a good actor. Know that and know that you're fine. You're just fine. But if you need some technical help at some point, call upon it. Who knows? Who cares? And then get the shot. What a sweetheart.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I think I've seen all those movies, and some of them
Yeah.
I watch. From the Terrace, I just watch again and again
Yeah.
and again.
What a great man. What a great man.
Yeah, I mean, we all know what he's done with Newman's Own and the charity. Just,
Yeah.
just
Just a
beyond.
extraordinary man. I was really, really lucky to make two films with him. Great
Yeah,
man.
truly. And of course, Slapshot,
Yeah.
which, when I was working for my eyeglass company, that movie resonated with me so much as a goof. And when I
Yeah.
worked for the biggest eyewear company, I said in a meeting once, because I was a manager, I said, why don't we come up with a line of uh, frames called a Hansen eyeglasses? And and people laughed, and most people didn't get it, but whatever.
Yeah.
Um, okay, moving on. You received an Academy Award nomination for Places in the Heart. Just a magnificent performance, truly. I And
Thank you.
I look at faces, and I plunge into I do, and that's why I watch movies again and again, because each, it's just like a, for me, it's not like watching a play, because you can literally, I guess, you can go to a play, see it 6 or 7 times, and you're going to take 6 or 7 things. Am I right about that?
Yeah, sure.
You're going to take 6 or 7 things different that you didn't know, and sometimes
Absolutely.
yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes with a movie, but. So how did what did that I mean, that's a hell of a recognition. What did that mean for you?
Well, the director of Places in the Heart said to me after I was nominated, he said, it's going to be tough for you now
Wow.
because people are going to think that you're going to ask for a lot of money. So he said, just keep going.
Was that
I
Robert
never
Preston? What was his name? Preston, who directed that? I'm trying to.
Robert,
I,
God, it's ridiculous.
no, that's
Can
all right.
you,
It's not important. I
it's
was just
just
trying
not
to.
coming to me right now.
Yeah, I was just trying to. But I,
It's
that
going to
I
come to me tonight when I'm trying to go to sleep. So I'm going
no,
to
it's
get up.
fine. It's wait.
You got it? Can you
No,
get it?
I'm looking. No,
Oh
I
my
don't.
God, he was an extraordinary director. Absolutely extraordinary. I have a funny story. He told us all, he said, we're paying you enough. He said, you keep the costumes on when you're not on the set. We were in Waxahachie, Texas. We weren't going anywhere. We were in these little kind of funny little apartments. So I decided to go to church on Sundays, to the church that he had gone to when he was a child.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it was a black church primarily, and a wonderful church. And one of the things I remember about it most was that all the children who came to the church, they weren't put in some Sunday school. They were in the church, and they would move around the church and just crawl into your lap. They just move all over the church, crawling into people's laps, and they stayed quiet and happy. And I got to know the women in the church. And because I was using my accent, they thought I was Texan. And because I was wearing these clothes from 1920s, they thought I was poor. When I was leaving, they said, come downstairs to coffee hour with us. And they made a circle. And in the middle of the circle were a number of paper bags. And they said, Lindsay, take our hands now. We're going to sing to you. We're going to sing you a song. And we're going to put our arms around you on the plane and keep you safe. And when they were finished with the singing, they said, the paper bags are for you. In the paper bags, because they thought I was a poor white woman, were clothes that they had collected and canned goods that they thought I was going to need. Oh my God.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, what are some of the elements about that film that made it so special? Uh, Even things beneath the surface that made that it was such a tender, real story.
It was an extraordinary moment. Benton, Bob Benton, he
Uh,
had made a film before it. Um, I think it was called In the Still of the Night with Meryl Streep. I can't see the other actor. I'll think of it also in a minute. And it had not done well. And it really humbled him. He had been really on the rise, and it humbled him. And he kind of went back to the drawing board and wrote this film about his life, really. And he said, I'm going to get this right. Even if I have to reshoot scenes, I'm going to get this right. And that spirit just invaded all of us. We would have done anything for him on that film. We Everyone was disciplined. Everybody was just giving 100%. And there were such wonderful actors to work with,
Yeah.
you know. And we were in the atmosphere of the place and knew that was Benton's growing up place and how much it meant to him. So it began to mean that much to us. It was wonderful. It was
Yeah.
just,
Truly wonderful movie.
yeah,
Truly.
extraordinary movie.
Yeah. And again, to prepare, I've seen these movies, but I spent a couple days and watched them again just to absorb.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of.
Danny Glover. Oh, Danny Glover was so amazing in that film.
Yeah, yeah. Just
He told me a lot of stories of his youth in the South. Yeah, just, you know, everyone on that film was grateful. That's a very different atmosphere than many
yeah,
Hollywood films. Yeah,
yeah,
I think I said that. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I like what you said about Benton, and I'm going to read about him off air when just to kind of absorb. That's what I do. He's an
yeah,
interesting, interesting sidelights that he's from there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So that's a really interesting sidelight that a director's from there, so
yeah.
that stuff is in his belly. Uh,
Interesting fact about that film. The film opens on several characters saying grace. And the opening of the film was to be each character, major character in the film, saying grace. Well, the studio decided they didn't want that. That was too religious. It was too whatever. So they made him do what many films do, which was to establish the place by doing a kind of montage. But, it was ridiculous. It was Waxahachie, Texas. It wasn't like you were in Paris, right? It, it was a non-filmmaker's idea of how to open a film, but Benton's hands were tied.
huh.
So you get a couple of people saying grace in that opening, and then you get pictures of, I don't know, some monument in Waxahachie, Texas. It's a rather bizarre opening of the film.
Huh.
Funny what happens.
Yeah, I like the ending too. That surreal.
Oh, the ending. Oh,
Oh,
the and as a filmmaker, the panning of that, everybody had to, as the camera's panning across you and passes you, you had to get out so the camera could keep going, and then they had to get out, and then the camera goes down below them and can't see everybody back. I mean, it was like a dance. It was so well coordinated. When we finished it, we all screamed with pride that we had been able to do it. But it is so amazing, isn't it? Yeah,
amazing
kills
ending. It really
kills you.
resonates. You want to just kind of hold on to that last scene because it was so nice. Everybody's back together again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was nice. Um, Moving on, just these are little snippets, kind of thing. The House of Games. Why do you think that remains such a cult classic
Hmm.
today?
Well, it's well written for one thing. Um, and I think Joey and I understood David's work. Joey had done a lot of David's work even when David was very young, and myself included. And we respected his work. And we knew that he was a minimalist director, right? That we could trust the material. And Joey and I loved working with each other. There was a lot of love in that film. And um, it was a strange film. And unlike other things that I had done, but I had done enough of David's material to know how to play it, and I trusted the excellence of his writing. So we had a good time. It was an intense film to make. Yeah,
And you're working with David Mamet, who's directing you, and then you were married to him at the time, correct?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that also must put different flashlights on the whole.
Well, one of the things that was sweet about it, I knew David, and I met him doing two of his plays at Yale, at the Yale Playhouse. I wasn't at Yale at the time, and he told me that he had fallen in love with me, seeing me in the movies. He was in Chicago, working on another play of his, and when he learned that I was going to do his play at Yale, two of his plays at Yale, he said to that director, "I'm leaving. Good luck with this. I'm going to Yale to marry Lindsay Crouse." And I think one of the reasons why I married him so quickly was because it was a moment in time where I was the right age to be married. I had recently had an evening where I ran to my mother late at night. She took me in bed with her, covered me with the covers to comfort me about how hard it is to be an actor. I had run to her because I felt I was getting to be marriageable age and the age where one would think about having children. And I called her one night, cried on the phone, and I said, I'm never going to have this. I want to be an actor. I don't know how I'll have children, how I'll meet anybody. My life is just kind of at a crunch. And she said, "Come to me right now." And it was pouring rain. It was soaking wet. She grabbed me up and took me in bed with her with my wet boots and my wet raincoat, and she held me all night. And it was right after that that I met David. And there was this playwright. And the two plays of his that I did at Yale were absolutely beautiful, gorgeous plays. And I thought, I'm home. And one night, I was in the place that he was staying. We were talking about the next day's rehearsal, and his father called him. And his father said, "Where are you?" And he said, "I'm at Yale. I'm going to marry Lindsay Crouse." That's what he said on the phone. And his back was to me. It was a dysfunctional proposal.
Wow.
But when a really brilliant young playwright, and you're the daughter of a playwright, and the plays are beautiful, and you're moving along in your career, and it seems like, yes, this seems right.
Yeah, swept away.
And we neither of us knew each other very well at all. Mistake,
Hey,
but
hey,
that's what it was.
yeah, sure. Hey,
That's how it.
yeah, I was married once before, and the night before we got married, my first wife, we had a huge fight the day before we got married, and I didn't know my mother was hiding in the dining room, and we had a huge fight. She ran out of the house. My mother with the tears coming down her face.
Oh, oh.
Tears. She said, "Calvin, you cannot marry this girl tomorrow." And I said something that's was really deep. I said, "You know what, Mom?" And this is 1969, and the world was changing. Huh. I said, "You know what, Ma? It really doesn't make a difference who I marry tomorrow because I'm going to get divorced." So, yeah, that's what I said. It was a great. I haven't written that scene into any book that I've written. It's a great scene. She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Ma, I'm going to get divorced. So I truly want to get on with my life. So I'm getting married tomorrow, and however long it lasts, it lasts, but it'll be part of my life and my journey. I'm getting married
Mm,
tomorrow." And we got married, and
amazing.
it lasted, 3.5 years. But that's how I went into my first marriage. It was part of life and part of learning and part of statistics because
Mhm.
everybody's getting divorced. So I just wanted to move on with my life. Um, it,
Yeah,
it was a great scene.
it's amazing.
My mother didn't understand it, of course. She's old world, but that's what.
It's wonderful because I'm sure so many marriages start out that way, with someone knowing right before the ceremony happens,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And unable, you're just unable to put the brakes on then. You're just
Can't put the
total.
brakes on. You just can't.
Yeah,
And
yeah. You're
but
in a river.
but it all worked out really well.
Yeah.
Truly
Hallelujah. Yeah. Yeah.
correct. Um,
Yeah.
you've done so much television,
Mm.
and I was going online and trying to find some performances from Hill Street Blues and stuff. All the stuff you've done, you know, Buffy the Vampire, Hill Street Blues, another Kate. Is there any one particular character that you felt closest to personally in all your television work?
Gosh. You know, I think for me, the early days in television were the most meaningful. The roles like Hill Street Blues. Um, Partly because of the nature of television then. Um, it was interesting that Hill Street Blues was really created by a group of New York writers who then became Hollywood writers. I knew them all from The Village Voice,
Ah,
and the writers were very invested. Everybody was in together with this kind of wonderful spirit of creating this thing. And um, later years of doing television, I found it much more impersonal. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Um, yeah, it was more like movie making than it was like television making. And another thing that it allowed me to do was to play a lot of different kinds of characters, and I was really grateful because I wanted to do that. I never wanted to be one of those people that was just kind of pigeonholed as one thing. That would have been really sad to me. So, yeah,
but that's your mantra. It's what I've observed in my small little microcosmic world. You just play complicated characters,
yeah,
and
they were very interesting, very
truly,
interesting.
truly,
Hmm.
truly, truly. And so I'm a huge fan that way, because I love complicated characters.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I do. Now to talk a little bit about stuff that means a lot to me. In my microcosmic work, working with the Women's Health Institute and all the stuff I've done
yeah,
in
yeah.
my awareness. Um, I, I I get real glib and I get very upset, and sometimes I say I hate the Cro-Magnon caveman because he's the one who started misogyny by making a woman walk a few steps behind him because he was bigger and stronger, and we're still trying to fix that. So
Well, just
uh,
remember that woman probably didn't mind.
maybe she liked the security, you know, because they're, you know,
I imagine she did.
maybe she did. Good point. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank
She's
you.
probably the last one that didn't mind, but
Yeah,
she probably didn't.
yeah. In my view of the world, my perfect view of the world, I still get upset about. She should have minded, but whatever. Because we're still trying to fix. Which leads into the next question. You said we discussed it before we went on air. You know, there's just not a lot of meaningful roles for women over a certain age, and that really hasn't improved much, has it?
Well, I think, as Hollywood, became this place of these, multi-million dollar movies, etc., the idea of a lead in a movie or even a prominent character actor had to mean money, especially the women, had to mean money. And there were very few parts. So anyone that began to mean money was going to get cast again and again and again. And it became almost impossible to get cast in films. And it was heartbreaking.
Mm,
I I certainly don't resent those women. I love their performances and they're terrific. It's not about that.
no.
It's about having a certain breadth of options, both for the actors and the filmmakers, who might make all kinds of discoveries. in other women that they would choose. So to me, it's kind of tragic.
Yeah. There, and it's funny. There was a play. I think you performed in it. That was written by some crazy noise outside, like a helicopter's landing in my backyard. Wow.
Oh, oh, well.
Oh well. But Peter Schaffer, if I'm pronouncing, wrote a play for Maggie Smith
Hmm.
because she needed that, and I was so impressed
Yeah,
about that.
yeah,
Uh, but
yeah.
that's an extraordinary story in and of
You know,
itself.
I turned to the things that she was doing and that Judi Dench was doing because, the British want to see them on stage. They don't consider them ugly. They enjoy their maturity and their talents, and they knight them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I want to talk a little bit about your teaching career, which I think is great. USC and UCLA, which are two Big Ten schools. I'm a Rutgers guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and USC. Uh,
BU, Harvard also. Yeah. Other schools. Yeah.
yeah. So, what do young actors misunderstand most about acting?
Young actors want to emote. They want to be seen as deep and dramatic. They don't understand that the script is at one level, and then you choose an action that you're playing. That can be with the script or against the script, but you continue to play that one thing. Very, very few drama teachers know this. So these are young actors, they've figured out where they're going to be loud, where they're going to be soft, what kind of accent they're going to have, what kind of mustache they're going to have. And they're completely missing out on how to play the scene, which is more difficult, but is ultimately going to allow the script to sing. If I say to you, I'm so cold, you're going to be in the men's room in the intermission. I'm so cold can be accusatory. You can accuse someone with that. You can pull them close with that. All kinds of things. So it's the accusing and the pulling close that you have to figure out that you're doing in the play. And then the line that shoots through the line and gives it life. If you try to emphasize the words for what they mean on the surface, you're not acting at all. And the audience will leave. They don't need you because they don't need you for that. They understand the words. They need you to know what the words were for. Was it the love scene? Was it the death scene? What was it? Ice So Cold could be in any of those scenes, right? So I am very happy to teach because not many acting teachers know this. And the great acting teachers of the early part of the century, they're gone. And they did know this. And I think some of it is the fault of television and, you go in an audition and suddenly you're a star. I mean, the word star, wow. Um, it's almost become meaningless. So those actors don't really have the humbling experience of learning the real work. And it's not easy and it requires practice, right? And doing it again and again and eventually getting a hold of some kind of technique. So it's something I notice a lot, and it's why I try to teach as much as I can.
Teaching is wonderful. I experienced it myself in a small way when I taught at Rutgers, and I mentor students now in journalism and media. Um, I think I'm trying to appreciate it is so intense to be an actor. It just, and you know, I'm watching some of my favorite performances and watching nuances but it's such an intense, and that I think it escapes the vast majority of
Yeah,
people who go to see. It's so intense what you have to pull from your gut.
yeah. And I mean, one of the hardest parts about it now is that you don't get to do it a lot. So, a well-oiled machine is a well-oiled machine. And so, suddenly you're on a set, and you haven't been on a set in 3 months or, longer. Then it's a little bit more daunting than it should be. Then it's not just, oh yeah, this is my place. You're kind of remembering, oh yeah, I used to be here. So yeah.
Okay. The next little important thing I wanted, if we could talk about what drew me to you is your journey into Buddhism with
Yeah.
Rick. Uh,
Hmm.
and that was on top of my little list of, you know, the energies that drew me to you, because had I have and continue to have a wonderful spiritual journey that has no, it has, it's just a spiritual journey. I haven't, I actually wrote Pope Leo last August, because the things, some of the things I shared with you are so extraordinary and really beyond. And I'm
Yeah.
just a regular guy, you know. I eat tuna subs uh, 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 on weekends.
That's the key.
Tuna
The
sub.
tuna subs.
Yeah, I eat tuna subs. I haven't eaten meat. That's part of my spiritual journey since
Hmm.
1975. Nothing with four legs, which turned out to be really great because I have zero coronary artery plaque, which allows this thing here to work really well. There's
Keep
nothing
going. Keep
blocking
going.
blood going up here. Uh, um, uh, but your spirituality, which fascinates me, and so how did Buddhism enter your life, Lindsay?
Um, my father, as I said, had been a deeply religious man. So when I was in college, I had a choice at the end of Harvard, Radcliffe. Um, I had thought about going into the ministry,
Wow.
and I was also becoming a dancer and acting. It was, which way was I going to go? Because I was going to have to get some teaching on both levels and become really qualified. And that was going to take time. I didn't want to make a mistake. But I decided that at that point, I decided that I could use more of myself, more aspects of myself in the world of a theater. And, The Sound of Music was just done last fall at the Kennedy Center. And as I sat one more time in front of that play, the same feeling came up in me where you just wanted to cry at a certain point in the play, and you just feel open and softened. And, with that family facing the Nazis, and the age-old story of what is the best in human life? What is human life? What can human life raise you to? So when I was dealing with that decision at the end of college, I thought, no, I think that at this moment in time, an acting career would allow me to do that, which would fulfill what I was looking for in divinity school. And it would allow me to be with a huge variety of people. Some of my first jobs were things like performing Butterflies Are Free across the country, being in Southern Illinois, being in places, and yet the same thing would happen in the audiences, where they'd be moved or they'd cry or they'd come backstage and be so thankful. And I thought, this is a ministry. This is a ministry. This is wonderful. And it's so various. And I'm not in robes, so nobody's intimidated or feels like I'm going to be very staid or I'm going to disapprove of them or anything. I'm going to embody people they might disapprove of. And I'm going to help them to have some kind of understanding of those people that perhaps opens a new perspective for them. And I thought, this is a really exciting way to live. So exciting. And that's what it meant to me. The awards, it wasn't that. That's what it meant to me. Yeah.
So acting is a kind of a spiritual practice.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the last plays I was in New York, Mornings at 7, all the actors in that production talked about that. We talked about that. It was the time of COVID. Everybody in the audience had to be masked. And we felt so grateful that we were able to be on stage during that time. And we talked about how sacred an experience it was. And we were all older. And we all felt that we'd been very, very fortunate.
And Buddhism is part of your acting.
Well, during the time that I was out in Los Angeles, I met this teacher. Rick and I went to a teaching one night, and he was absolutely phenomenal. He had been a professor of comparative religion at Columbia. He was tough. He was straight. He had a way of talking that was magnetic. Not magnetic in some sort of hippie pull them all in thing. Very, very real, like a real New Yorker, just real. And we began to take his classes. And we both realized this is something absolutely amazing. So we kept taking classes with him. And then we began to take classes from his teacher, who was also amazing. And finally, he said to Rick and he said to me, "You have to teach." I said, "What, are you kidding? I can't teach. You're the teacher, you know? You know so much more than I do and have this background in it." No, he said, "You're going to teach." I brought him here to Gloucester in the summers, to this wonderful place here, um, which is a group of old barns and a field, and was created by this woman who was a dancer with Jerome Robbins. And she had dance performances there, she had theater performances there. And I brought him there and put an advertisement in the paper, and an article about who he was and the kind of things that he had done for me and other people. Well, I had to get Rick and my mother bringing me meals, bringing me coffee, because I had two phones, one in each ear, with everybody saying, "Do you think he could help me? My son's an addict. My husband died last year. My daughter is a runaway. I think my father's drinking." I mean, everybody brought the tough things in their life and said, "Do you think this would help?" And I just said, "Come, just come." And he just took the place by storm. By the next year, we were renting a tent for like 500 people. The next year, we were renting an entire boarding school where people spent, the night for 8 days. He was incredible. He was a gift. And sadly, he died very young. He got pancreatic cancer and he died very quickly, very young. So Rick and I then took up the mantle with this group and have continued teaching them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have an incredible, very aware church in our little village with an extraordinary minister who very kindly allows me to give sermons, and I love giving sermons. And so there's my father coming back into my life, with the teachings of Christ, the teachings of Buddha. After you study religion like that, you realize same, 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 same.
Of course.
These are the great,
Correct.
as the Dalai Lama says, you divide religion, lie in the middle, right? The different denominations below, and then just who's practicing something above, and
Right.
we're all together with the big questions.
Correct. And
So
that's
I'm so grateful for it, because when I'm not working, I'm able to do that.
yeah,
And that really fulfills a very similar thing.
yeah. Wow. And again, that's why I was so thrilled to get a chance to chat with you about this kind of stuff, because I've
Yeah,
been on my journey with no name except spirit.
yeah.
Uh, and
That
I
and that is it. That is it. It's just what the Dalai Lama was saying. It's just above the line. That's all there is.
right,
That's all there is. And good on you. And I think that's the only good news in having an injury or an illness, or some kind of challenge like that, is that it can take it by the hand and lead you right there. And I
correct,
think that's a good fortune.
correct. I've had that good fortune, as I told you, coming out of
Yeah,
church, walking with a cane and not throwing a cane away.
yeah,
Powerful, powerful stuff, wonderful
yeah.
stuff, gift, and there's so much more for another time.
Another talk.
Another time. Looking back over your 50 years or so, um, and sometimes I wince when I throw those numbers around.
I know,
You,
I'm not 50 years old. Who told you that?
I don't know. I did bad research somewhere. There's bad research. Uh,
Oh, they never get their facts right.
what are you most proud of? But your whole, but there's so much to be proud of. Your accomplishments, the teaching. I mean,
Mhm.
everything. It's just been. It's
I think I wouldn't call it so much pride as mm, a certain kind of happiness or satisfaction. Might verge on satisfaction, that the things that I've been able to do either on stage or on film and in teaching, I feel they've been good things. They've been things that were worthy, and where people had their sights pretty high. Ooh, something happened to me. I became very small and I don't see you anymore. Can you hear me?
I hear you fine.
Okay, all right. Well, so long as you can hear me.
Yeah, I hear you
Hey,
fine. I see
Rick,
you. I see you
something
fine.
happened to the screen.
You can fix
I,
it. This is very informal. Here, very
I,
informal.
my compatriot disappeared. I'm looking at myself. I didn't do it. I didn't touch anything.
You logging off?
No,
We're
we're not logging off. It
Oh,
just happened. This thing changed.
yeah,
Hang on one second. One second.
we're
go back
good.
to
We're good.
meeting. You're good.
Hmm, We're trying to get the
Say,
whole thing back.
say back to meeting.
Oh, thank you.
I'll pick the dog up. It looks like you're
Oh,
smiling.
sweetie, is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you very
Can
much.
you close this door, please? You had your spouse, so I have my spouse.
That's right.
He
The
detected.
great
I told her
support,
to close the door
the
because
great
the dog
support
was
system.
barking. Uh,
Yeah.
the
How
dog was
dare he?
barking when she came
He's
home.
trying to horn in on things, that's all.
Yeah, correct, correct. Um, okay. Well, actually, two questions. I love this question, and I actually borrowed it. I'm going to confess to you. See, I borrowed it from Barbara Walters, who was an idol of mine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
an
Yeah.
idol of mine. So here goes. Excluding family or friends, somebody living and dead you'd like to spend the day with, and it could be
Abraham,
couple, could be couple.
Abraham Lincoln,
Nice,
Abraham Lincoln.
nice, nice. What a great answer. I from time to time when I need a bit of inspiration, uh, and it's coming up on America's 250th. I put on and I watch Marian Anderson singing
Oh,
"Thy Country 'Tis of Thee" and sit
oh,
in 1939 in front of Abraham Lincoln.
right.
And I want to write an essay, and maybe I ought to do it quicker. But if you want a definition of America,
Yeah,
if you want a definition of America as we approach our 250th, then go watch Marian Anderson sing "My
yeah,
Country 'Tis of Thee" in front of 75,000 black and white people
yeah,
together in 1939.
yeah.
Uh, in front of Lincoln, and Lincoln. I marvel at Abraham Lincoln. I always did, on what he had to.
Read Doris Kearns Goodwin's book. Read it. You will get so much out of it. I was at the Lincoln Memorial in the fall, and as I walked up the steps and looked at him, I burst into tears. There's just something. There's just something, and we need it now.
Yeah,
And I was glad
yeah,
to be in his company for a moment.
yeah.
Mhm.
I liked him because he was tall. By the way, I'm 6'5", and Lincoln was. You can't tell.
I'm not.
I'm
I'm
sitting down.
not.
No, I'm sitting down. When future, last question. I mean, I could ask you a million more questions, but when future generations see and watch and discover Lindsay Crouse, what would you like them to see?
Oh, wow. Mm. I hope they see that whatever is the stuff of their life is worthy, that the stuff of their life is important, that their life, no matter how they've characterized it, is filled with infinite possibilities.
Great. Great. Wow, I love that. I'm going to use it, and I'll attribute it to you.
Hey, thanks.
Wow. So, this has been, actually, I'm going to quote from a movie. Watch this. The time with you has been sumptuous. And the last scene in the movie Norma Ray with Sally Field, Ron Liebman, and they were together this whole time, and they probably loved each other, but they could never, because two different worlds. And Ron Liebman looks at Sally Field, Norma Ray, and says, "The time with you has been sumptuous," and
Yeah,
that just resonated with me. So the time with you has been sumptuous. You've been so gracious to share your time.
it's
And
been my pleasure,
uh,
and your questions have been wonderful.
well, thank you. By the way, and someday I'll write about this and what you've done by elevating me, because this is a whole new world for me, and and to glimpse and to grasp and again, and I'm such a fan, you know,
Oh, thank you.
I'm such
Thank
a
you.
fan, truly, and I just love how the universe has, this is such a universal thing that I connected with you, and it's been great,
Mm.
and you've been great, and to be continued. I would,
Exactly.
to be continued. There's
Yes.
always stuff thank you, thank you, thank you.
And
Uh,
likewise. And
thank you so
likewise.
much. Don't leave. We're just going to do a 2-minute wrap. I love that
Okay.
Hollywood term, 2-minute wrap. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. It has been my total pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.